All right, let's do this.
Okay. So this is the Whatever Podcast's most popular clip or most popular short.
Okay.
And bro, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with all of you out there, all 10 of my subscribers. I like the Whatever Podcast. All right, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I know I'm a degen, but dude, I love it. I can't help it. The podcast is just so entertaining, dude. The debates so entertaining. There's nothing like the mix of politics and culture wars and economics issues and feminism. I just love that shit, man. I love this podcast, which I'm gonna be attacked for, but I just think it's funny. I just like it.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with liking a podcast, the whatever podcast. In the end of the day, it's all just entertainment. It's nobody's getting hurt. Some
bro.
people look at it. I kind of look at the whatever podcast as kind of like being like the Jerry Springer and this and this and that of YouTube and all that. They kind of just showcase a lot of crazy people, but sometimes they have really good discussions on there. But like, there's nothing wrong with watching or liking a little bit of brain rot content once in a while. I mean, I think we all do it once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. Now, me personally, I don't really watch whatever podcast or a lot of dating podcasts like this because, mainly I'm just not really as interested in it as some other people are. I don't really see the point in debating about dating as much. I feel like it's not that something that big to be debating about. But I do I do find that a lot of people really enjoy watching other people talking about like relationships dynamics and dating and things like that.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. What it is. At least for the Whatever Podcast, because I haven't seen other dating programs. The thing I hate most about the Whatever Podcast is actually the dating conversation topics. That is what I hate the most about the Whatever Podcast. What I love about the Whatever Podcast is so often they will get into side conversations that are extremely interesting, where they talk about feminism, they talk about suffrage, they talk about politics and war and feminism and things like this, which are extremely interesting topics. The dating thing, I agree with you, totally boring. Don't care about the dating at all, unless it's like kind of more macro scale, in which it's kind of cool. But my favorite topics are like this clip we're about to watch, where they talk about like cultural, political, philosophical issues. Those are what I like to talk about.
Kai, I'll be honest with you. I never really watched a full episode of the Whatever Podcast. Most of the time, whenever I seen them, it was just like some clips, 10-minute clips, shorts, things like that. And generally it's like the wacky stuff that goes on there in that show. And that makes me go, what the heck is going on here? You know what I mean? So, hey, I mean, you might be right. So,
oh, dude, so good. Especially with the Andrew Wilson joining the show. It's gotten so phenomenally interesting because he really pushes back against the girls. Brian will sometimes... Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, you could tell Andrew Wilson kind of has a fun time on this show, making fun of these
absolutely.
Women,
Absolutely he does. He runs laps around them. It's hilarious. So yeah, without further ado, let's take a look.
You said earlier, your boyfriend, you said he's not conservative, but he's liberal, and you're much further left. You're leftist. And you said you would, when it comes to perhaps people, you would be friends with someone who's maybe more conservative, so you can shift them more left.
I said that tongue-in-cheek, but
you said that, well, I was going to ask, have you shifted your boyfriend more left?
I wish.
Okay, so he's pretty firm in his liberalism.
He's firmly planted in his filthy liberalism, but I love him in spite of that.
I see. Okay, got it.
But we align.
Wait, being a liberal is not left enough?
Yeah, dude, I don't even know what she is. I don't know if she's a socialist or what.
I think that's kind of funny to hear somebody say, "Oh,
filthy liberal."
Like my boyfriend, he's not left enough. He's just a liberal.
A filthy liberal.
Yeah. Like, oh, wait a minute, that's not left enough for him. So I guess that's funny coming because we're more like right wing, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's absolutely hilarious.
So if we
Yeah,
want to
that's a little funny.
create a dichotomy of like social and then economic issues, I feel like the economic issues is primarily where we have disagreement, and the social issues, those tend to be, I feel like, the most polarizing and contentious. So if we had more disagreement there, we probably would not be able to be in a relationship together harmoniously. So
Okay, I see.
Harmoniously.
Friends, yeah, I'm open to radicalizing them. Sure.
Okay, got it. So, who here? I'm curious. Who here considers themselves a feminist? Maybe just show of hands. Are you a feminist? That's it.
I am.
Aaron,
I know you
Pixie,
are.
Molly, a little bit. Okay. All right.
You want to say the thing?
What? Oh, what thing?
The thing. You know the thing.
Oh, that women are super valuable. You know,
Yes,
and
that thing.
women are fucking. That I just fundamentally, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I'm a libertarian, so that means that I believe that men and women should have equal rights. You know, equal property rights, right? Between men and women. Now I don't I mean, I call myself a feminist in that sense, that I think that men and women should have equal rights, but I wouldn't really call myself the feminist and identify myself with the feminists that like call themselves feminists, you know, like a lot of these like radical women, because a lot of them are generally like communists or socialists, and they believe in using the state to you know, force equality down on people, which I disagree with completely.
Yeah, I thought you were just gonna say sex work is real work.
Oh, sex work is real work. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. There we go.
Yes.
So Charlie, we've got some feminists here. What do you think of feminism?
I want them to define the term first, because there's no use in me
Sure.
giving thoughts on a abstract concept.
Big brain move on Charlie.
I'm all
Big
yours.
brain
What's
move.
your sense? How do you define feminism?
Feminism is just simply the advocacy of equality, both social, political, economic, on the basis of all genders everywhere. So that's what feminism is to me.
Do you concur?
I concur.
All genders?
Do you concur?
Concurred.
Okay.
So you want me to
Do
give
you
a thought on that?
agree
or?
with their definition of feminism?
I mean, that would probably be the most agreed upon definition. So I do believe in equality under the law, obviously. I believe in equality for representation or enfranchisement to be able to vote, obviously. But you said economic equality. That's interesting. Do you think that female models and male models should be paid the same by law?
Yep.
Okay, so we should make female
That's nonsense.
actresses and models be paid less, because they earn about 20 times more than men.
I think when
So
you get
women would get a pay cut. You're okay
I think
with
when
that?
it comes to creative fields like that, it's going to be very difficult to look at it on the basis of like sex or gender, how you would pay somebody, because that's going to have so many more factors than simply that. But if we're talking about equal economic opportunities, like for example, should like a man and woman doing the exact same position at a corporate office be paid the same if they're doing the same amount of work? Then
Well, it
yes.
depends on what they study, depends how long they've been there, it depends if they're equally as good at the job, it depends
But
how...
all else being
Hold
equal,
on.
I'm saying if all of
Hold
those
on.
things are equal, can we at least agree they should be paid the same?
That's already the law. So you're not allowed to discriminate based on gender or sex, based on a law passed in the 1970s.
Right, yeah.
However, what is now being tried to be passed through other movements is to try to swoop in and say, regardless of qualifications, how often you ask for a raise. So I'll ask a question. Why do you think, for example, the average male, it looks as if they earn more than an average woman in a city? Is it because of sexism or other factors?
I think sometimes implicit bias can be one factor among many, but like all the things that you mentioned earlier, different qualifications, different business acumen, skills, work output, numbers of hours work could all
Can
be
I say
things that
something?
impact pay.
Right.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I just want to say something real quick. I am completely against anti-discrimination laws. I think that in the end of the day, if a job sees you as a woman and just decides to pay you less as a woman, your choices in that situation is to quit that job or to stay. You know what I mean? Simply because somebody is being a sexist or is not paying you as much as another man, or maybe racist or any other ist that you could think of, right?
That's right.
Does not give
That's
you the
right.
right to force them to pay you equally to any other person. In the end of the day, a boss can give you an offer for a job, and you can either take that job or you can leave that job. If you don't like the conditions or the pay, well, then you don't have to take that job. I'll admit that I think it's a bit of a dick move to pay women less, especially if they have the same qualifications. But what is there? I guess this was where I diverge with the feminists a little bit. What is the solution to this issue, right? The solution generally from like feminist standpoint is, well, we need to get the state to come in and force every single business to pay every single man and woman the same under every situation. And I just think that's a violation of property rights fundamentally. And no one actually really believes that men and women or anybody should always get paid the same for every job, because there are so many things that that could differentiate one person from another, that could determine whether or not they make more than one person or less than another person. Some people are smarter than other people. Some people are shorter, stronger, fatter. And so because of those things, people get paid more than other people. Some people get paid less than other people. And that is just sort of part of life. And there's not much you can really do about that. You could either look at the deal and be like, I'm not going to take the deal and walk away, or you could take the deal and work and try to work your way up to the point where you're getting paid more than other people, and I started to really realize this when I started working in a warehouse, where one of my bosses, he actually came up to, because I always work hard. I always come into work on time. I always come into work. I never get written up. I never do stupid things. And there are people who always screw around. And when my boss came to give me a raise, he's like, listen, people in here, they think that everybody should get paid the same, but that's not how it works in the real world. If you come into work on time, if you do your shit, if you respect your job, well, then you're going to get paid more than other people, and that's how I think it should be.
Good man. No, I completely agree with that. And I think you hit on it. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said earlier, it's a violation of property rights, which is absolutely true. I think with the thousands upon thousands of regulations that the U.S. government has put on private industry, one of them being discrimination. The problem with all these regulations is that they have good intentions. Some of them have good intentions, but they always have unintended side effects. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it seems on face value that eliminating discrimination is a good thing, but we only look at one side of the coin. We only look at the side of the coin where discrimination is bad because we only think of, people bullying somebody based on their race or their sex. But the other half of that coin is that discrimination is, well, I won't say discrimination, but I put into the terms where there's a difference between discrimination and differentiation. And those two are heavily, heavily conflated. And that's kind of a subject for another day. But the difference is, discrimination is when you judge somebody based on a characteristic that they share with a larger group. Whereas differentiation is a characteristic that you individually possess. And the thing is, people should be allowed to differentiate your behavior, your character, the way that you dress, the way that you carry yourself. They should be allowed to, and for lack of a better term, discriminate against these characteristics that are unbeneficial to their business or what they're trying to accomplish. And that's the main problem. If we get into a legal case where somebody claims racism or some sort of discrimination, it's going to be hard to tell the difference between discrimination and differentiation. And that's the big problem.
And if I can add one last thing to your point, and some of these anti-discrimination laws may actually make it harder for the people whom you're trying to help get a job, because let's say, so for instance, like disabled people, they added a bunch of anti-discrimination laws for disabled people. Like, you can't fire somebody who's disabled for certain reasons, and if you do, then they would have the right to sue you. So what ends up happening is a lot of business owners, they see that, they'd be like, hey, this person who is disabled, if they leave the job not liking the outcome, they could very well sue me. So as opposed to hiring that person, they will just not hire them in the first place, as to get away from the risk of being sued by that person if it doesn't work out. So if we put in a bunch of anti-discrimination laws for women too, like the laws that basically say you can't fire a woman because she's pregnant, or even ask her if she's going to become pregnant. If you fire a woman, it makes it more costly to hire a woman that may be pregnant, because if you do fire her and she sues you, well then, you're going to have to pay back a whole bunch of money. So having these laws, although their intention is to help these people, they end up harming them, because now these businesses are going to be like, I'm not going to hire this person because they're going to be a much higher risk of suing me or screwing me over. Whereas if those laws weren't there and they, weren't able to sue them, and if they didn't like the job, they could just simply walk away, and then that would be that. They would hire them, but because there's a chance of them turning around and suing them if they don't like, how they got fired, well, then they're going to be like, maybe I should just didn't hire this person in the first place, whether they're disabled, whether they're a woman, whether they're a person of color, insert any group.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's like the same case can be made for price control. It's like minimum wage laws are supposed to help people, but what are the side effects? What are the unintended consequences? What happened in California? There was mass layoffs, right? When they raised the minimum wage to $20 an hour for like McDonald's or something or whatever. There was mass layoffs because the companies just couldn't afford to keep that many employees with that much prices. So the unintended side effects are going to be a lot of the times worse than the positive benefits of that legal, implementation.
100%.
So
like studies that like focus on the gaps between men and women like do make note of these differences.
Okay, Skiztech, thank you for the gifted 100 subs. Charlie, do you have a response?
Hey, that's from
no,
World of Warcraft.
I do want to actually get back.
Oh, that sound.
Bro, Brian is the biggest WoW nerd
Is
ever.
He? Yeah.
Dude, he's an immense WoW nerd. Sometimes he'll have like segments, like short, like a few minutes, where he'll just like troll the entire panel just talking about World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I'm literally playing Classic right now. I love World of Warcraft.
Yes, exactly. He says like some funny shit, dude.
Even more of a fundamental question, and I'm sorry I didn't ask this.
Sure.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
Oh.
A woman is somebody who presents as our social conception of womanhood.
So you
acts in such a way.
So Pixie, just can you answer that question without using the word woman or womanhood?
It's because basically it would be a functional definition. So as a society, we have an understanding of what woman is.
What is that?
Man.
Yeah, that's basically.
I am a man.
Well done.
Can you elaborate?
XY chromosomes.
Okay, but the problem with that is that I didn't check your chromosomes before coming in here and calling you a man, and you didn't check my chromosomes before coming in here.
Or genitals.
Or genitals, calling me a woman.
So let me just play this out. So first of all, you can't give me a definition without using the word woman.
That's a functional definition. Yeah, sure. Do you know what functional definitions are?
I'm very well aware.
Wrong,
you should have a functional
okay.
definition for the
Can I
most
say
important
something?
questions.
Go for it.
Okay, so I think a lot of these, the problem with a lot of these feminist and transgender activists is that they tend to mush together gender and sex, and they act as if it's the same thing when it's really not, right? Now, if they're talking about gender, right, then they're not necessarily wrong. A gender is just what you identify as, right? You can identify as a woman, you can identify as a cow, you can identify as a dog or a woman or a man or whatever you want to identify as, right? Whereas your sex is something that is something biological. It's, your XY chromosomes, your XX chromosomes, right?
Yeah.
So if you're born with the XX chromosomes, you're a woman, and if you're XY, you're a man, and that is what it is, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't identify as something else. Like now, if you identify if you're born a man and you identify as a woman, gender is pretty much just the social construct, the social side of it. You know what I mean? Because like, what makes a man a man? Well, mainly what makes a man is what people think men act like, and what people think women act like, right? In the terms of the gender side, right? Because there are plenty of men that act like women, and there are plenty of women that act like men. So your gender and your sex are completely two separate things, right? So if you're born a man, you can identify as a woman and you can act like a woman, and people will look at you as a woman, but you will always be a man. There's no changing that. You know what I'm saying? So you could gender identify as a woman, and I'll respect you as a woman, and and all of that. But fundamentally, you was born a man, and you are a man, and there's nothing that you could do about that. And that's just how I look at it.
Yeah, no, well said. And I debated Vexy on this, but I debated him on the idea that, well, first of all, we don't have to conform to somebody's self-identification just because they want us to. I think it's fine to be respectful to people, and in most circumstances, I would be respectful of somebody who identified as something that they're not, and I would respect their wishes. But the reason I'm respecting their wishes is not because I respect them. It's because I don't want to start a fight. Like, I just don't want to fight that person. I think they're delusional in believing that there's something they're not. Because you can be a female and identify as a man, but I don't think that makes you correct. Because you're not correct. So you can technically identify as anything you want, but I do not have to. What is the word? Kind of go with whatever your self-identification is. And that's kind of the checks and balances of society.
Yeah. So like when you see a transgender person, you're not going to go up to that person and be like, "You're a man." You're going to respect them. You're going to be like, "Oh, you're a woman," right? If they ask you to call you a woman. But in the end of the day, we all know the truth, right?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I know the truth. You know the truth. There's a reason why men get upset when they find out that the person that they're having sex with is a transgender man. The reason why is because we all know deep down inside that there is differences between men and women that cannot be changed. And like, such as our chromosomal structure, those are things that just cannot be changed. So because of that, we sort of have to recognize that. We have to be honest with ourselves and be like, yeah, like, men are men and women are women. Now, again, that we could respect people and call them what they wish, but in the end of the day, we know the truth. Like you just said, like I just said, we all know the truth. We all know what's going on. And if we sit here and plug our ears, right, and be like, no, women are women in every situation, then we run into some pretty fishy situations. Like, okay, well, what if a male sex offender identifies as a woman? Should we then put him in female prisons? That I heard a situation in California where they're handing out condoms in female prisons because they're putting in men who identify as women into female prisons. And that is a situation where, your gender identity does not matter. There are certain biological things that we sort of have to recognize, which is that men, criminal men should not be enclosed with criminal women. Because then a lot of bad things happen. I don't think I need to get into detail.
Yeah. Speaking of bad things, there's the whole prison problem. But I'm sure you've heard of situations in schools where bad things have happened because of this kind of going with this idea of allowing self-identification. As you can imagine, there's some serious problems when it comes to, let's say, private spaces for the individual sexes. There's some seriously bad things that have been reported that have happened in those spaces. And it's like, why are we doing this to our innocent population? Like it's bad enough that we're doing it in prisons, but like, to innocent people, we're allowing bad things to happen to innocent people's.
You know what I think that we should do? Just to let's see if this will actually work. I know this is not actually going to work, but as opposed to having, because the issue with a lot of these transgender people is they're saying, oh, we're being gender biased by putting male in women's bathrooms. Well, okay, well, how about this? Maybe instead of male and women's bathroom, we have XX bathrooms and XY bathrooms. So there's no gender involved. It's just you're based on your chromosomes. And then you have to go into the bathroom in which you're assigned with your chromosomes. And you can identify as whatever you want. But they're not going to support that. And the reason why is because there's like this incessant need for a lot of transgender people to sort of insert themselves into places in which a lot of people don't feel comfortable with them being in, because it sort of makes them feel more like the opposite sex. And I don't think that we should sacrifice that in order to make certain people feel comfortable. I don't think we should make other people feel uncomfortable in order to make certain people feel more comfortable if that person doesn't want that person to be there. Now, I'll give an olive branch, right? Let's say you're a business owner and you're okay with allowing men in your female's bathroom and your women in your bathroom or whatever, and everything was privately owned. And how whatever bathroom situation you want to set up on your own property is up to you. But when we have like basically public schools and stuff like that, it's a little bit of a different situation, because this is like money being stolen from us and being paid to uphold these schools and forcing our children all to be in these areas at once. So it becomes a conflict of interest to say that now every public school needs to allow men to go into the women's bathrooms, because now there are people who are forced to send their kids to that school that don't support that and don't want their kids anywhere near a man in the women's bathroom. So hey, I guess this is another argument for why we should privatize public schools. But
yeah, that's true. Always comes back to private property, baby.
Yeah, it always goes back to private property. Yeah.
So revisiting the definitional argument they're having right now. They're kind of in the middle of it, but I'm just going to clear up for the audience the truth behind these definitions. There's a problem with their definitions, and I'll explain why. So the first one is a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. This is circular logic. When you say that a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, what you're saying is that you are presupposing that people know what a woman is. And so it doesn't answer the question inside of the definition. We don't know what a woman is by that definition. We only know that people who know what a woman is understand what a woman is within that definition. So it's not a helpful definition. Second is, this definition would be a woman is someone who exhibits characteristics of a woman. Again, the problem is this is a regressive definition, because we still don't know what a woman is. They're saying the characteristics of a woman. Sure, well, what's a woman? So the problem is you can't have the definition inside the definition.
Yeah, because it begs the question.
It'll turn into a circle. Exactly, it begs the question. It becomes circular reasoning. So that's the problem with that identification. And the millions of ways they will make it. There's even like one crazy one where it's like a woman is a person who identifies with the social and societal and governmental and institutional preconceptions of the characteristics of what makes something a woman, or something like that. And it's just a enlargement of the same problem, where it's like, okay, cool, we get all that, but it's like we still don't know what a woman is, because you were asking for the characteristic, or you're trying to answer with what the characteristics of a woman are. At the end of the day, it's still circular. And that's why I find that the best definition of what a woman is, and this seems to get through all the garbage and all the problems, is a woman is an adult human female, where female refers to the biological category typically characterized by reproductive anatomy associated with producing large gametes and XX chromosomes. Now, that's not always the case, because sometimes women don't have XX chromosomes, or they will have some sort of, be born with some sort of anomaly in their body where they don't have like especially large gametes, or they'll be like intersex or something like this. But at the end of the day, a woman is someone who is typically characterized by reproductive anatomy. So that's the key word, typically, because a woman could potentially not have XX chromosomes and could potentially not have, like gametes or like, complete reproductive parts. But that doesn't mean she's not a woman. It just means that she has some biological errors in her body.
Yeah, and if I could add one last thing, I don't think any of these people actually believe that simply identifying as a woman makes you a woman, because if that was true, there would be no point in transgender surgery. especially transgender surgery for adolescent children. If you have a child that identifies as a woman and simply identifying as a woman makes them a woman, well, then what's the point of transitioning? I mean, all they need to do is just say, I'm a woman, and then that's it. I'm a woman, you know? But none of these people actually believe that, because whenever a person says, hey, I believe that I'm a woman and I want to be transgender, well, then their first question is like, okay, well, when are you going to get surgery? Well, it's just like, why do I need to get surgery? I am a woman, right? You know? So yeah, I mean, fundamentally, they could say a woman is a person that identifies with what people consider to be a woman. But what do people consider to be a woman? Well, it always comes down to your chromosomes fundamentally. So that's really what they're referring to. You can you can't just be a woman by identifying as a woman, because what you consider to be a woman is a specific thing that not anyone could just simply be by claiming that they are that thing. And even most transgender people, of course, believe this, because if they didn't believe this, they wouldn't transition. There would be no point in transitioning in the first place.
Civilization, right?
Well, the point of a functional definition, functional definitions are a definition that is by the function of something. So, like, for example,
no, there's an objective
One equals
definition.
one is one is a function of one. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. So then, can you give me an objective, a functional, utilitarian, any sort of biological definition of what a woman is? Because how can we debate feminism if we can't agree what a woman is?
I would even, like, I feel like Pixie's definition absolutely satisfies the definition of what constitutes womanhood.
It absolutely does not.
But I would define it only slightly differently, which is that it's a person who performs a set of social roles that are typically associated with feminine characteristics, but not necessarily, because there are even cis women who fall outside of this. It's a regressive definition. And we still consider them women nonetheless. Like butch lesbians, for example, are women that exhibit very masculine characteristics, but nonetheless society understands them to be women. So
I find cis to be a very offensive word, by the way. I don't know how you feel about the cis.
I think
it's hate speech, to be honest.
I didn't mean to trigger you, Brian. I would have given you a trigger warning before if I had known.
So do you think anyone can become a woman?
So I gotta say one thing. Why are we associating femininity with women if gender is a spectrum or is a social construct? You know, there are women that aren't very feminine and are very masculine. So are you saying that masculine women aren't women? You know, it's kind of this is what happens when you don't really put a real word to your when you use the same word in your definition. And you become extremely hazy when you just use like feminine or masculine, and you don't actually like fully put into words what you mean by what you say, because then you could just very easily twist what they're saying to make them look really bad. So like, you know, like she just said, like, oh, a person with feminine characteristics. Okay, well, what if a woman or a person who is with XX chromosomes acts very masculine? Are they no longer a woman now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and like you're saying, there needs to be a standard, right? It's like a spectrum is not a standard. There can be spectrums within a standard, but you need a standard nonetheless. Like, for example, one of these comments says, there can be feminine men and there can be masculine women, but they're still in that category. Category. They can show traits of the opposite sex, but that doesn't mean that they're the opposite sex. It just means that they're showing traits of the opposite sex. So that's completely fine. Sex within the two categories has a spectrum of different people. I don't know if Charlie said this yet, but he said there's 0 genders, 2 sexes, and infinite personalities, which I think is a beautiful way of encapsulating it. Absolutely beautiful way of encapsulating it, because that's what we're really getting at here. It's like we're saying that you can cross the standard. You can cross the spectrum, or you can go from one spectrum to another, but you just can't.
Yeah, femininity and masculinity, although they generally tend, you know, one side over the other. For instance, like men are generally more masculine, and women are generally more, you know, feminine. You know what I'm trying to say? That those are just, like you just said, personality traits that doesn't make you who you are. Like, I could be a very feminine man, right? But that doesn't mean that I am a woman. What your femininity or masculinity doesn't determine your
Sex.
your sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not anyone will.
Okay, so then at what point do they become a woman?
It will depend on where they are in their gender transition for the
Does
most
it,
part.
does it require
mindset.
drugs to become a woman?
No.
Personally, I think it's a mindset. It's a
mindset.
spiritual energy. It's the
Oh,
vibe that
God.
you give off. You know, like
The vibe. Before we continue on, I
The
want to just give everyone an opportunity to answer totally
Vibe
fine.
check.
To answer Charlie's question. I know you two had already answered. What is a woman? Starting with you, we'll go around the table. Go ahead.
Can you skip me?
Skip me.
We'll come back to her.
I'm a woman.
That's the best answer. That's the one.
That's not the best answer. It's a answer.
It's kind of funny that people are almost afraid to answer
come
that
back
question
to you,
as
or-
to not offend certain people. I don't know if you heard me, but what I said was I think it's a little bit weird how people are almost afraid to answer the question because they don't want to offend people. But I think
Yeah.
it shouldn't be offensive at all to say what a woman is. I think I don't. I feel like people, these freaking people are just taking this way too far, and they're taking it way too serious to the point where like they're willing to freak out over people if you just have a small disagreement on one like minute thing about this. I don't see why this is so contentious. Like personally, I really don't see why this is such a contentious issue. Like, why are people getting so upset if you don't look at somebody the way that they want to be looked at? You know what I mean? Just
Bro,
brush it
I
off,
think
move
it's
on.
fear. I honestly think it's fear. I
You
think
know?
I think they're afraid of the woke left.
Yeah.
I think that's what it
yeah.
is.
I think
I think
people are
that-
just obsessing over their identities, and that if people don't look at them the way that they look at themselves, like it's almost like an insult to them. And I'm not sure where all of this comes from.
Yeah.
You know?
Postmodernism.
Yeah, come back to me. Come back to me. Let me
Sure.
brainstorm
Okay.
on
Go
that.
ahead.
Same. I'm a woman.
What is a woman?
Like I don't.
I don't
What about
know.
you?
What's that?
Can I have you tilt your mic down just
Yeah,
a
of
tad?
course.
Perfect.
Till you
Go
like
ahead.
that.
right there.
Yeah.
I'm a woman, but I also do think that a woman is someone who identifies as a woman.
Wrong.
And that's that.
I mean, theoretically, it's someone who's born with a womb, but the
Correct.
generation obviously has proven that men can turn into women.
Nope.
So I'm not discluding that. I still think that they should be perceived as what they're portraying themselves as. But technically, I still think trans girls, they are a version of a man, but they can still be classed as a woman, which is a bit tricky. But yeah.
Molly.
I'll say the same answer. I think what constitutes as a woman is the energy that you give off and that you want to put out into the world.
So if being a woman or a female is a mindset, can your age also be a mindset? Can you choose to be, can you just say I feel 14, which is a classifiable
You know where this is
mental
going.
condition, by the way,
Yeah.
of in it.
So I will say, yes, I know people that act way younger than they actually are, and they love acting way younger than they actually are. And I know people that, like,
Dude, you
act
can see
way
Charlie's
older than
face.
they
He's
are,
like, I
and
got her.
and
He's
they
like, I
pride
totally
themselves
got
in
her.
that. And I think
Okay, fair enough.
Oof,
So if
that's
a
a slippery slope
35-year-old
right there,
man
bro.
claims he's 14, should we have any problem if he wants to have sex with another 14-year-old?
no. I'm not.
She's like,
saying
oh,
you
shit.
should-
Oh no! Oh no!
I'm
no.
not saying you
No.
should be able to have sex, but
Oh,
But
they can
who's
can
to say
state
he's not 14?
I feel 14.
Right,
They're
but-
allowed to state that.
Grid 1
Yeah, but
Motorsports donated
I think
200.
where he's trying to go with this is that you could say you are one thing all you want, but it does not make you that thing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I could say I'm a woman all I want, but it does not make me an actual woman. You know, there are certain things in society that we respect and we're not going to take too seriously. Like if you call yourself a woman, I'm not going to take it that serious. I'll probably call you a woman. But then there are certain things in life that if you identify as that thing, there are negative consequences to that thing. So for instance, like if you identify as a woman, there's no real negative consequences to that because I mean, you could just live as a woman. It doesn't really harm anybody else, you know.
Except
as
for
long as
people
you're
who
not,
think you're dumb.
yeah, I mean, people may think it's a little odd, but you know, but when we're talking about people identifying as like a 14-year-old, there are real negative consequences to that. You know what I'm
it's
saying?
pretty dangerous.
That's a pretty fucked up thing because, you know, then we can run into some real dicey situations with guys who are attracted to children. And obviously we don't want that.
Dicey.
Yeah, very dicey.
$. The man who owns it paid himself 1.3 mil a day last year. He loves feminism. Today men act in female
Sex
can
work
be
is real
better
work.
women than real women. Feminism has failed you. How can the patriarchy help you today?
That was beautiful, Grid One. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, he's so going back.
But if your identity is an energy or a feeling that can change, why would it be wrong for a 35-year-old to say he's 14? Therefore,
because he's not.
But then how is someone who has a woman?
Bro, he
who's not a
destroyed
woman?
them.
Two different things.
Sorry,
Why is
that made me
something
laugh
back?
really hard. That's kind of funny because it's just like, isn't that what we're saying? Well,
Yeah.
duh, yeah, because he's not.
You can
Yeah,
see
because
their
he's
minds trying to do gymnastics to try to figure out a way around it.
That's funny. Sorry, you
They're
can go back
all-
a little bit, but that made me laugh really hard when she said, "Well, he's not." It's like
He's
that's what
not.
we're trying to say, bro.
Isn't
In
it?
time.
Your age,
Woman,
because
therefore.
he's not.
But then how is someone who has male parts a woman if he's
I
not
feel
a
like
woman?
that's two different
It's
things.
different
Why?
because you
It's
can't
a
go
mindset,
back
isn't
in
it?
time.
Your age isn't a mindset. I
Well,
mean,
but
like,
then why is your sex or your gender a mindset and your
Because-
age isn't?
I don't know which one is which. One of you could probably say, but sex and
Do you
gender
agree?
is
At
different.
least acknowledge that sex and gender are two separate
That-
things.
that's what I was gonna
There are
say.
0 genders, 2 sexes, and infinite personalities.
What?
Okay.
Gender doesn't exist.
What do you mean?
Okay.
Sex does. So the parts you're born with is who you are.
How does gender not exist?
It's a 1960s clinical term, largely made out of the Academy of John
Clinical?
Money and Alfred Kinsey and many postmodern child psychiatrists, many of whom, by the way, were not really great people, but we don't have to go into that. But gender is a new term of the last 50 or 60 years. So,
yeah, but it still exists.
but
It's
personalities
social
exist. We can agree
constructionism.
with that. Proclivities
Yeah,
or
it's
interests
just
or
the idea
likes
that you are
exist.
identifying as something that your body is not. You know what I mean?
It's an
I mean,
idea.
I'm not. Yeah, it's an idea. I mean, I don't think it's useful to say it doesn't exist. Well, yeah, it doesn't exist. It's not a real fucking object that you could touch. But what what people say, what they mean by gender is that it's a social construction. It's something that we sort of made up. In the same way we sort of made up the terms for masculinity and femininity, and we've made up people's names and ideologies and all of these things. Yeah, all of these things don't exist, but they have implications in reality, is because it's how we categorize things, and how
Yeah,
we
well,
categorize
social-
things, could be important because it's a communication thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say social constructionism can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. It can be good when we're using, like when we create language so that we can understand each other and talk, so that we can trade and negotiate and, collaborate. So social construction can be a good thing, like how we invented money. Money is a social construction. So it can be good, but it can also be bad, which is the entire topic of this debate.
Yeah, it just depends on how you use it,
To
really.
that definition, then
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
if you're a woman or a man, is your energy. It is your personality.
Well, yeah,
No.
the goal, or what used to be the case, is the vast majority, 99.9% of all people, their biology and their reality, or how they viewed their reality, I should say, were in alignment. And now that's not so much the case. So people are, first of all, there's many elements to this. People are told that they can become something they can't. So they go on a very, very damaging, self-destructive pattern of medical interventions that even if you're pro-trans, you have to acknowledge that a hysterectomy at age 17 is not exactly an easy surgery.
I don't think anyone at 17 should be altering their body. But
No, I agree.
Yeah.
It's happening right now. Thousands of young kids across the country are getting what is called gender-affirming care, but it's
Ready to be an e-commerce pioneer?
Oh, no.
Bluehost
This guy
has
doesn't
step-by-step
have
WordPress
Adblocker
onboarding
on.
to
Hair or
reversible damage.
surgeries?
Both. So puberty blockers and hormone
There's
blockers.
thousands of kids that are getting hysterectomies across the United States.
No, thousands of kids are getting puberty blockers or hormone blockers or puberty blockers. Probably even more, tens of thousands.
You could stop using those, though.
And as far as breast reduction surgery or hysterectomies, we don't know the number, but I'll even say it's probably only a couple dozen. It's probably, you're right, it's probably not thousands.
I think that's a
But
bad
it's-
idea.
and we don't know the
personally.
exact numbers, but an
Yeah.
Yeah, giving children puberty blockers and all of this stuff. I think that we need to our bodies are especially when they're developing, is an extremely delicate thing that we shouldn't fuck with, right? There's a reason why they tell you not to smoke cigarettes when you're, a child. There's a reason why they tell you generally not to smoke pot or drink alcohol or do a lot of things that adults do. And the reason why that is because your body isn't fully developed, your mind isn't fully developed, and when your mind isn't fully developed, you don't really think things through as easily as an adult does. So because of that, it's not really good to be making life-altering decisions at such a young age, because what if they grow up and then they regret that? They can't turn back after that, So that's why I think that people should just wait until they're an adult. If you have a serious transgender child, right? And I don't see the problem with just being like, okay, this person's a girl, and that's it. Like, why do we have to give them all of these surgeries and puberty blockers and pharmaceutical medication? Like, you can't just put them in a dress and give them some long hair. Why do we have to do all of this extra stuff?
Yeah, I think as a guardian, and I don't have a super firm position on this, but the best case I believe is that as a guardian or a parent, your duty to your child is to preserve their natural body until they're a consenting adult, whatever that age may be. You have to preserve their body until they're a consenting adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good general rule. Unless I hear a better position than that, that's my position on that.
Yeah, we don't think that children necessarily have the brain capacity to make such a decisions, and until they are, we got to keep them the way they are.
Yeah.
Estimate is anywhere between 10 to 15,000 minors, and is growing, are currently receiving monthly doses of hormone replacement therapy, estrogenic therapy.
Yeah, but you can stop those and be like...
Well, that's the question, right? There's a lot of detransitioners that are speaking out that are not able to puberty is not an assembly line that you could just push a button and restart. That is a increasingly disproven scientific theory right now. Chloe Cole is one of the most famous detransitioners who, she's in her 20s and she was sold a bill of goods, and when she was 16 she said, I think I'm a man, and she went on a very, very aggressive regimen of hormone blockers and puberty blockers, and she has huge regret, and hopefully one day she'll be able to have children again. But it gets back to a question of so I'm just making a point, though, that these ideas have consequences. It's more than just a silly question. Oh, what is a woman? That if you can't answer it, or at the very least say that you should allow minors to become adults before they make these decisions, then, and this is not a small thing, the quote-unquote gender-affirming care, we know that in California you have to be 18 years old to get a tattoo, and yet 14-year-olds can go to what we call a doctor and get a highly aggressive hormone replacement therapy treatment, sometimes without even notifying their parent. And all of these are ramifications of the inability to answer very simple biological questions.
I would be
That's crazy to me.
Seeing your exact,
they don't even need to tell the parents. That's crazy to me. That doesn't make that. Wow, I don't even. I'm speechless. That's crazy to me, man.
All right, well, we're not doing full screen again.
Yeah, let's keep it like that, I guess.
When it comes to puberty blockers, because I know a lot of people, or not a lot of people, there's a lot of people who end up on puberty blockers, not because they're necessarily trans, but because they're going through puberty too early. And there are clear negative side effects and consequences.
What does that even mean? Going through puberty too early? Isn't that just a natural body phenomenon? I'm sure there's edge cases.
There's there's I don't know if it's a disorder or a disease or something like that, where some women, they get the puberty as way earlier than they're supposed to, and some at crazy ages, 1 or 2 years old.
Oh wow.
It's not normal. It's not supposed to happen. So because
of
that
that seems fine, but
so because of that, they'll
if you're
take
around
blockers
12,
but that's not the reason why these kids are taking puberty blockers. These kids are taking puberty blockers not because they have a condition that's making their puberty come early. They're taking puberty blockers to block what is their puberty coming at a natural age, which is not good for you at all. That's not a good thing for you to do. And the reason why that's not a good thing for you to do is there's a reason why your body gets puberty at the age that it does is because that is along all the years in which you start to grow certain body parts. And if you block that or like withhold it, then you're basically shortening the development time, that time that it's needed to develop the things that it develops, like, you know, your bigger penis and some breasts, and for women the breasts and their period, and for men you know, they can actually, they become like fertile and shit. So
right.
And if you basically stop that, or you block it and you don't allow that process to happen, and then you end up changing your mind afterwards, you could basically run the risk of being infertile. You could actually make yourself infertile as a male by doing that, and as a female too, because you're not giving your body the time that it needs to develop itself. And that's why it's not just a good idea to be handing out puberty blockers to people who don't, like, it's one thing, like I said, if you had that condition where you're getting puberty at 1 year old, and that's not a natural thing, that is like a unnatural thing. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to prevent that unnatural thing from having negative effects on you. But when you're getting puberty at the normal age and you stop that, then yeah, you're preventing your body from developing in ways that basically make you like a fertile person that can make you actually have kids in the future, to put it lightly, and a whole host of other issues.